guys, it's Cece. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're playing some Raid Shadow Legends, and we are going to go over everything that is happening in Raid for Halloween. If you've been thinking about starting to actually play Raid or start a new account, now is the perfect time. Number one, because I can actually send you a free legendary champion on day one. That's right, you can actually start the game with a legendary champion as long as you download Raid Shadow Legends using my code, and you can find that link down in the description box, or you can scan the QR code on the screen, and that's going to give you Elenaril again on day one. You get to use her right away. I will send her right into your inbox, and once you reach level 25, you're also going to get a Uugo. Not only that, but after downloading the game using my link, within 72 hours, you get to enter a new player code. For this, you want to enter the code Monkey King so that you get another free legendary named Sun Wukong, and he's only here until October the 31st. That is going to be the last time you will be able to claim that before that code expires. So again, the code is going to be Monkey King, and that's going to give you another legendary. These are going to give you the perfect start to your account and the best time to start a new account on Raid. Looking at the game, you can see Halloween has arrived in Raid, and it is decorated to do so. I think one of the most exciting thing that comes with the Halloween though is the fact that we have a new promo code. That's right, if you enter the code SPOOKY17, you are going to get yourself a 5-star chicken, a free gear removal token, some energy, as well as some silver. Apart from the promo code, there is events and tournaments ongoing. So with the events, there is going to be the Summon Rush event, as well as the Dungeon Divers event. So you are going to want to make sure that you take a look at those. And over to the tournaments, we also have a few tournaments going on, one of them being the Champion Training Tournament. So that one, you need to do things like ascending your champions using skill tomes, leveling them up. So be sure that you take a look at all of those and see what you are required to do to get yourself some points and work your way up on the leaderboard. Something with the Champion Training Tournament that you do want to pay attention to is, in case you do have Ultimate Death Knight, this is your opportunity to get his perfect soul. So with that, it is going to vary depending on the level, but also how many points you have. Keep in mind, there is going to be a minimum threshold for the points, so that is something you are going to want to double check and pay attention to if you do have this unit. Like I said, it's the perfect time to get his perfect soul. If you do not have Ultimate Death Knight, then you will still have the opportunity to get other rewards and goodies. They're also going to have the Dragon Attack Tournament. Now, this one is going to have some conditions on it. So what that means is they've implemented a challenge, and essentially you want to enter the Dragon's Lair, use as few turns as possible. But the challenging part is you can only use champions from the faction of the Knights Revenant, so something you're going to want to keep in mind as you are trying to climb through the tournament and get those rewards. In terms of summoning, they are doing the Progressive Chance event, but this one is going to be around the spooky season. So they've included some of the spookier champions in here. One thing you're going to want to pay attention to though is it is going to be changing. So every 24 hours is going to give you a new list of champions that you can actually put down into your progressive summon list. So I am curious, and I want to hear from you guys if there's any specific days that you are looking to summon on. Are you hunting for a specific champion that you are hoping to get? Comment them down below and let me know who you're looking for. They have also hinted that they will be doing a Halloween deck of fates, but they are also giving us a new fusion. So let's go ahead and take a look at Gretel. Taking a quick look at the skills for Gretel, immediately we see that there is different parts of the skills that mention somebody else being Hansel. So immediately we see we have that Hansel and Gretel thing. It is like a duo where if you have them both on the same team, it is going to affect the skills. So we're going to look just at Gretel first, and then we will look at Hansel. But looks alone, just looking at the champions themselves, to me, it doesn't scream Halloween. It doesn't scream like a Halloween champion like some of the other champs that they've done in the game, which I'm actually going to make an entirely different video on Halloween champs, so be sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that video. Looks aside, we are going to have to actually look at the skills. So first thing being Gretel's aura. The nice thing with this is it is universal. It's going to increase your ally attack in battles by 30% and not limited to any one part of the game. It is going to be everywhere, which is great. First skill, so if it's just her, it's going to attack an enemy and have the chance of placing the decreased defense debuff on the enemy. If you have Hansel on the same team, it now becomes an AoE. Same debuff, but it does decrease the chance a bit. But the benefit to having them on the same team is it is going to place an extra hit against enemies that have any buffs. So it does become slightly stronger, becomes an AoE, and then you also have that chance of an extra hit with it. But essentially, you're decreasing the defense, and that's the debuff that's being placed with skill 1. Skill 2 is not going to change if you have Hansel on the same team. So with just Gretel, it does attack a single enemy 4 times, which is nice. The first hit is going to ignore 10% of the target's defense. The second hit is going to ignore 15%. The third hit ignores 20%. The fourth hit ignores 25%. If the attack kills an enemy, it resets the cooldown of this skill and fills the champion's turn meter by 50%. That skill is really nice. You're going to attack him 4 times, every hit being able to ignore more and more of the defense. So you do potentially have the chance of actually killing them. And if that happens, it's going to reset that cooldown, but it's also going to increase your turn meters. So I do see where the skill 2 can be kind of strong in there. And depending on when you're utilizing it against an enemy, it would be a timing thing. But the skill 2 is pretty nice. The third skill, if you're using Gretel alone, it is an AoE and it does decrease the turn meter of all enemies by 25%. Now, if you have Hansel on the team, then it's going to decrease the turn meter of all enemies by 50% instead, and it cannot be resisted. Then it's going to fill the champion's turn meter by 20% for each enemy alive after the attack. So I think this is really a skill where we see if you have Hansel on the same team, it greatly improves the skill and kind of gives you the benefit of using both of them as opposed to just using her. I think on her own, it's not a bad skill, but it really does shine when you actually have Hansel on the same team. And let's take a look at the passive. So for her passive, it's going to fill the champion's turn meter by 50% whenever an enemy is granted an extra turn. Now again, if Hansel is on the same team, then it also fills his turn meter by 50% whenever they're granted an extra turn. So having him on, it kind of brings that passive over to Hansel as well. And then with the active effect, if Hansel's on the same team and is killed by the enemy, instantly activates Sacred Ritual skill. So it is a really nice passive, but I think looking overall at all of these skills, on her own, I don't know if Gretel is really that strong. I feel like the synergy is almost needed to actually get full effect from her. Her skill 2 could be decent, but with that damage multiplier, we have to see how much we can actually get out of her on her own. I think she's a lot stronger actually with Hansel and looking at the skills and how they change with them. So let's go ahead and look at Hansel's skills. Looking at Hansel for his aura skill, it is going to increase ally attack, but it's only going to be in arena. It is by 33%, so slightly different from Gretel's. So if you do have both of them and you're wanting to like utilize his skill, then if you're in arena, you'll utilize him. Otherwise, you can use hers anywhere. So for his first skill, it does attack one enemy and has a 50% chance of placing a weaken debuff for 2 turns. Now, if Gretel's on the same team, that becomes an AoE. And similar to how we saw Gretel's skill, well, where if Hansel's on the same team, it's going to lessen the chance, but it becomes an AoE. So same idea. And this is where we're going to see the synergy, because if you have both of them on the team, you're able to place the weaken as well as that decreased defense debuff. So both of them together, it becomes very strong. Otherwise, on their own, they're kind of And his skill 2 is similar in that it doesn't change if Gretel's on the team or not, but it attacks an enemy 2 times, which is going to ignore the shield and the unkillable buff. It's also going to grant an extra turn if the attack actually kills the enemy. So with him, he's also the legendary attack type, and we kind of see that in here, but the fact that he can ignore the shield and the unkillable buff does make him look really nice and appealing. Hansel's third skill is an AoE, where it is going to ignore part of each target's defense, and it also increases the cooldown of 1 random skill of each enemy by 2 turns. That's really nice, but if you have Gretel on the same page, it's now going to ignore 30% of their defense, and it's also going to increase the cooldown of all their skills by 2 turns instead, and the cooldown increasing effect cannot be resisted. So again, this is one of those skills where on his own, it's kind of okay, it's like decent, it's not bad. But if you have Gretel, it drastically actually changes the skill and really does make it a lot better. So again, I feel like it's a situation where we see on their own, they're kind of like, but when we see them paired together, it's like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. And that's kind of where you're going to get the strength out of them. And looking at Hansel's passive, so Brotherly Bond, so it's going to reflect all fear and true fear debuff from this champion to the attacker. But if Gretel is on the same team, it also reflects fear and true fear debuffs placed on Gretel back to the same attacker. So again, it just extends the passive over to Gretel, similar to how Gretel's passive extends over to Hansel. Now, the active effect of it is if Gretel is on the same team and is killed by the enemy, instantly activates Baneful Burst skill. So again, like I've kind of been saying with them, I think looking at both of these champions, looking at the skills, I think on their own individually, they don't shine that much. I think it's if you have them together, and that's really going to be for me, like a make or break. I don't know if I would necessarily build and use just Hansel or just Gretel if I have them. I personally feel like they're kind of reliant on each other, but I am curious to hear your thoughts. What do you think of the skills of Hansel and Gretel? And do you agree and kind of think that you either use them together or separate? They're kind of underwhelming. Comment down below and let me know. Something to keep in mind with these champions in their usage. So yes, we're getting 2 legendary champions coming into the game. So we know Gretel is going to be fusion. We actually don't know how we're going to get Hansel yet. So we're going to have to wait and see how we will be able to obtain him and if it's going to be something that is easily done or something that may be harder, especially for new players coming into the game. The other thing to consider is where we can actually use them and apply them in the game, since they are both attack types. So both of them being attack is something to factor in when you're putting them onto your team. So I can see usage in PvP, like looking at Arena, and potentially using them in Hydra, depending if you're able to make them work within your team. But all things that we're going to have to consider moving forward. That's your quick summary for the Halloween events that are upcoming and ongoing right now in Raid Shadow Legends. Again, be sure that you use my download link down below or scan the QR code on the screen. As a new player, you will be able to get yourself Elenaril right away on day 1. Makes that journey a lot easier, and keep in mind the code Monkey King is going to disappear as well on October 31st. So you'll also want to enter that as a new player within 72 hours of downloading the game. And don't forget to use that code SPOOKY17 so you get yourself some goodies. They have also teased to us to be sure that we actually log in on the 31st so we are able to collect a special treat. So be sure that you do log in and you claim that gift from Raid. That's all I have for you guys for today's videos, but I want you guys to comment down below and let me know your thoughts on everything from Hansel and Gretel and how you feel about them as champions. If it's their looks, their skills, comment down below. I want to hear it all and let me know. I'll be sure to see you guys in the next video. Bye! Next level.